Hello everyone and welcome to the Speak Freely podcast. My name is Emma Dunwell and today I'm joined by UKIP Leader Nick Tenconi. Thank you so much for coming on with me. And first off, I was just wondering if we could go right back to how you first got into politics because I'm fascinated.
Certainly. So I was 17 years old when I asked to meet with the local MP in my constituency, which is where I'm from, Eastbourne, down in East Sussex. Nigel Waterstone, if memory serves. He had a little office above a little 7-Eleven corner store. He met with me. I'm 17, A-levels, and he said this was the height of Tony Blair and Cherie Blair's rise, very, very popular. And he said, look, go and earn your money, go and become a millionaire, stay out of politics. There was me, young, hungry, wanting to get involved in politics, huge passion of mine, alongside international relations. And the advice I was given was go and earn some money because there's none in politics. So I think that was, at the time, I didn't quite understand how I should have felt about that because he'd given me his time. But it was a brief meeting, and I'm thinking now what he could have done, knowing what I know about politics, what he could have done with me, and instead he gave me that advice. So I went on to study at university international relations, politics, and philosophy, and I focused on international relations. Politics was incredibly boring. Prime ministerial system, presidential system, the mechanics and how it works, bureaucracy, red tape. Far more interesting was international relations theory, which is liberalism, Marxism, radicalism, and realism. Realism being the dominant theory of international relations for quite some time now. And what I noticed that you potentially had at university one or two Marxists, but no one was an out-and-out communist. And if they were, they kept themselves to themselves. This is back circa 2003, 4, 5, 6 era. So right after World Trade Center, and one of the main lecturers I had who coached me with my dissertation was formerly working in the White House, and this is all after World Trade Center. So I was able to learn an awful lot about how it works internationally, why it works the way that it does. Then I left after university. I got a job. I worked again in sales, always worked in new business, KPI environments. If you don't bill, you're out. If your numbers aren't on the board, you're out. Very aggressive, very fun environments, but I did that an awful lot. And by the Arab Spring of 2011, I'd also had enough with what I was doing and constantly being micromanaged, regardless of how well I performed. That's no reflection on the people managing me, but it was time to break free and make my own moves, which I'm sure we'll come on to talk about. But in terms of politics, when I grew up in the 80s and the 90s, it was all about the Cold War. It was all about Margaret Thatcher. It was all about the fall of the Soviet wall. It was all about understanding East versus West, good versus bad. And I had a very tolerant and patient father who would talk me through and manage and placate me with all of my questions, from why does a pint of milk cost a pint of milk, to why does petrol cost this much, to why are we at war with communists, why is it East versus West. And all the movies that we watched in the 80s and the 90s as kids, it was all East versus West. It was good versus bad. We just didn't know it at the time because it was muscle-bound, heroic men conquering over bad, shall we say, whether that's the Rocky films or the Arnold Schwarzenegger films. But I was always very, very interested in why things work and the way they work. And then if you jump from the Arab Spring and when I go on to start my own company unrelated to politics, turns out that I would wander into the field of developing, managing, coaching and mentoring. And then, of course, years later, it takes us to 2020 when we were told that we couldn't leave the house. And in Tesco's, I was told I had to stand 2 meters away from fellow citizens and I couldn't get into a pub. I had to book and I was treated with hostility when I wasn't muzzled up. At the same time, I was seeing nothing but Turning Point UK graphics plastered all over the internet. And so I got to work very, very quickly at the end of 2019, 2020, to understand more about where I fit into which political party or what we call movements or think tanks or lobby groups. And then by the end of 2021, I was the Chief Operations Officer of Turning Point UK. If it's possible to surmise in under 5 minutes, which it's not, that's essentially why I'm sat here now.
You also got into the business of personal training as well. How did you get into that? And does the discipline that fitness takes, does that carry through into your political life as well?
Yeah, certainly. So I was always fascinated growing up with size, with strength, with physicality, with combat, with masculinity. I was exposed culturally, media art. If you were that way inclined as a child in the era I grew up in, you were absolutely engulfed by it. Again, size, strength, power, good versus bad, etc. I also saw it as a man's duty, where possible, to make sure that he had put to use all the skills he'd been given by God, intellectually, physically, indeed spiritually as well. So I was always fascinated by personal development and growth, the idea that life is never ending suffering, life is never ending problems, life is never ending hardship.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lot to bear for 70, 80, 90 years. So there must be a way out of that, and the way out of that, I understood this philosophically, at least very young, was to spin it all into gold, was to take the pain and the trauma and suffering and take the essentially the anger and the rage and the emotion, and take that energy, identify it as an energy, and use that for something good.
Yeah.
Like those training sessions that I've put in when I first started training in 2006, when I became a club level athlete, when the hours I've put in, and then of course moving on to weight training, or what we call muscle and fitness or hypertrophy, the hours in the gym, the pain, the injuries, the nonsense, the surgeries, is very much a lifestyle. When I began Tenko training, I knew that I would coach and mentor students around what I've decided would be called a regime, and I would influence regime change, and that life and problems and things are never going to stop. You got to hold the mirror up to your face and realize that, or stare at yourself in the mirror, the problem staring right back at you, which was also taught in your sales and new business development training as well. With the life of fitness or athleticism or strength and conditioning or whatever you're into, alongside it is the diet. So you're looking at everything being about discipline,
Yep.
everything being about focus, everything being about the greater good and
All the
sacrifice.
strong characteristics that you should have.
Hugely slow discipline every single day of every week of every waking moment. But the thing is, in answering your question, I've been like this since birth. So I certainly wouldn't say that fitness turned me into the monster that I've become now. It's been with, I'll be very, and I think it's important to be transparent with voters in the audience, bearing in mind what we're selling and what we're pitching now. It's been with me since birth. That discipline and that drive. And the skill for me over the years has been to learn that actually the black and white extremes, this is actually unacceptable. It's about exploring the grey area, developing empathy, and there's lots attached to that. But that was what I went to set out to achieve when I started my little personal training, macronutrition, micronutrition, hypertrophy, body fat reduction organization. It was to say to people who were frankly in a mess, physically, spiritually, mentally, lifestyle wise, and tell them that if they accept responsibility and accountability, they can turn their life around. And that model proved to be very, very successful and effective.
So that's a really nice way of looking at sort of going to the gym, because you usually, especially like young lads now, going to the gym is all about, you know, getting big, and it's all, you know, they're doing the cut and then they bulk and, you know, all this business. But the way you just explained it puts it into a different category of, like you said, almost like a duty, like training for something, like training for manhood. Essentially, I think a lot of young people could get behind that message. Is probably why it's been most effective.
Well, I'd definitely like to bolt onto this. You know, whenever I can remember 17 years old, I can remember, context not relevant, but I can remember feeling really depressed, like I had no friends. The world was crashing down around me. So I put on my running gear. Where I'm from in Eastbourne, we have the base of the South Downs with the beachy head cliffs and everything.
Oh, nice.
And if you're going to start running, you're either going down to the beach or you're going up to the South Downs. Wind, rain, cold, hot, snow, sleet. There's you, the running gear. Your heart's beating incredibly fast, you're dripping in sweat, you're tired, the knees are hurting, and to say that at 17 is quite something. You know, you've been playing rugby, I was also boxing as well. Everything hurts. It's you against you. There's something about that. I don't care about the pleasure and the happiness. I just want to feel pain. I want to feel suffering. I want to feel trauma, because you learn from pain, suffering, and trauma. You don't learn from happiness. You don't learn from hedonism, from pleasure. They're nice to experience, whether that's a slice of cake or whether it's a feeling of elation because you're surrounded by people at a party, for example, but it doesn't last. Life is still going to keep throwing what it throws: devastation, bankruptcy, heartache. We've all checked into Heartbreak Hotel. It's horrible, feeling like we're worthless. But the one thing that remains consistent is you and your ability to overcome trauma based on free will. So I would say, and I advocated to a split of, I'd say, male, female, 50-50 over the 10, 11 years it was with Tenko, and technically still is. I would say to young men, the most important thing when the depression and the anxiety comes and the heartbreak comes and the nonsense and life and money, your training game, where able, needs to be up there with your prayer game. And that's essential for a man to involve himself completely and wholeheartedly in the development of his character, which I believed the number one method to do that, alongside theology and prayer and his faith, was physical training.
Yeah. So how did you actually come to your faith, if you don't mind me asking, and how strong do you feel in your faith now? Because it's a journey for most people, or if not all.
Absolutely. So in terms of coming to the faith, I think it's a very reasonable question. So I was baptized in 1984, 6 months after I was born. So obviously basic theology or basic Christian dogma, baptized, or what some denominations call saved. The beginning of the journey would be at that point. Like most 80s babies, I was baptized. Then I had a very classic, raised by boomer conservatives, I'd say a very agnostic slash heavy Catholic influence from my mother's side, and a very faith-based, spirituality-based, there for the grace of God go I influence on my father's side. But essentially it was a Christian household.
Yeah.
But there's something to learn about millennial kids and how we were raised by the boomers. As much as it may have been a Christian household, it was also quite agnostic as well.
Yeah.
Liberalism, freedom, etc., etc. So I battled through that in my as a child, in my teens, university, corporate life, setting up Tenko 5 years ago, 1920. I saw what was coming with Wuhan when announcements started coming about they were going to shut the gyms. My clients started turning up muzzled. This is nonsense. The propaganda of fear campaign was real. People's lives are going to be destroyed. So I knew something was very, very wrong spiritually. Indeed, we're potentially even entering into a period of spiritual warfare. So my journey from baptism, I've always said a prayer here and there, and I've always been a Christian. No other faith gets a second, or I'm not. I'll understand the apologetics of other faiths and their defense, but it's Christianity. I've always worn a cross, Saint Christopher, etc. But in 2020, I knew something satanic was coming our way, like most people did. Politically, the spiritual warfare element. So I got back into the parishes in 2020, go back to those runs on the South Downs and climbing into the boxing ring and doing all the training that I've done. I got off my backside and I identified where I was living, all the different parishes. So you'll find a Protestant parish, you'll find a Catholic parish, you'll find an Anglo-Catholic parish, you'll find a High Church Anglican Catholic parish, you'll find Pentecostal, Baptist, Methodist, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness, you'll find traditional Latin Mass. Oh yeah. So I got off my backside in 2020 and I went and I explored.
Yeah.
And each time I heard anything lefty or anything heretical or anything that I wasn't happy about, alongside my own study, which teaches us which is truth and light and the way, etc., in terms of patristics and early church father teachings, you have to make up your own mind on that. Even orthodoxy as well. And then eventually, after becoming incredibly frustrated, I knew something was off, and I knew what I wanted, which was the traditional Latin Mass.
Yeah.
But in Britain, it's fairly censored. You can find it, but it's fairly censored. The town I was living in happened to have one. I found it, I walked in, everything made sense. It's it's not the hardest thing to learn, but it's going to take a few years to understand because it's in Latin, obviously. But everything about it made sense. The reverence, the way the priest behaves, all the women are veiled up, everything about it, again, everyone's on their own journey, key term there, but the Gregorian chant, everything about it made sense. And then the sermon, which in a TLM is 20 minutes into the service, he started to bash Marxism. Oh yeah. Oh, Deo gratias.
Felt like you were home.
Thanks be to God, never looked back. And I knew anyway, because I saw the films when I was a kid, and they always insert it into films as well, in Nomine Patris et Filii Spiritus Sancti. You have a feeling of what it's like, and it's different, it lands different, etc. Yeah. So I was lucky. Then, of course, in recent years, I've moved, so now I travel a very long way. And when I'm traveling around wherever that is in the world, I'm unlikely to find a traditional Latin Mass. But that's the journey. It was waking up to the realities of the spiritual warfare, what have you, etc. Getting off my backside. And my advice to your audience is get on your Bible studies, get on your patristics, get on your early church fathers, your apologetics, your catechism if you're choosing Catholicism, and get into those parishes and fact find, which might take years, what is right for you. And then you decide what your journey should be and looks like, etc.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. It's nice that, because I'm seeing a mass, almost as a lot of people are, I'm seeing a mass return to Christianity, particularly among younger generations as well. I mean, myself included. I've only recently come to my faith sort of in the last couple of years, and exactly like you said, I need to Bible study more. I need to pray more. I need to, well, first off, find a church that hasn't got a rainbow flag outside, and then go to church more. Moving on slightly, you travelled to Ukraine in 2023 to deliver aid with Vans Without Borders. What motivated that? And since then, has your stance changed at all with the Russia-Ukraine situation?
So in terms of the timeline, i.e. getting involved, 2019, Wuhan, getting involved in politics, turning point, a lot changed in the last 5-6 years. So for your audience, I want them to view every motivation and action through that lens, which is me saying I'm going to take the country back. I'm going to utilize my skills as a politician, as a soldier, whatever you want to call it, as an ordinary human being with 8 pints of blood. I'm going to utilize what God's given me. So motivations for going for the mission to Ukraine was that I knew someone who was operating what's called Vans Without Borders, and I was very kindly offered to come, which is to get yourself to the front in Ukraine and to essentially fact find through very, very treacherous roads and open field, hundreds and hundreds of miles of not knowing where you're going or what you're doing. Russian bombs going off over there or Ukrainian bombs going off there. Find rubble, i.e. former towns, and deliver aid to those people that were there. So in 2022, I thought, or was it 23? I thought, do you know what? I'm going to go and do that because I want to go and help people. So it wasn't political as such.
It was just simply altruistic.
Yeah, in line with my faith. Because if you're going to do what I'm doing and preach what I'm preaching, you've got to walk the walk. Now, it's an honor and I want to do that, but you also have to do it as well. Yeah. But again, pick up your cross. So I'm doing it regardless of my feelings and my emotions about it, whatever that item is, aren't relevant. My duty comes first as the life I've chosen. So to go out to the front and deliver aid, you find the little rubble zones, and then these kids start coming out of the rubble, and the buildings, they start coming out of the rubble, and the mum and the dad, there's more women and children, there aren't too many men left. They start coming out, and you give them chocolate, and they're smiling and they're happy, and it's so bad. It's so bad, and it's horrible. And what can I say? What an honor and a privilege to go and to hand out aid. Things like, people think of aid, they think of food. What about crutches? If you've ever been an invalid, crutches are kind of important. If you're a woman, sanitary products, they're kind of important. All these things we take for granted. Yeah. It makes me sick. I'm sick of myself for if I've ever not been grateful enough. So being in those situations reminds you of what your duty is, of how lucky we are, and that the fight never ends, and that pretty soon Britain's going to be in a similar situation, although maybe not Russian boots on the ground. We must be prepared for war. So it was an honor and a privilege to be thought of and asked to attend, and then just to travel around and give out aid. Because if no one's willing to do that, you can't give out the aid. So it very much is about going and giving it out, etc.
So, I mean, what I'd get from that story is you saw something that you wanted to change, so you quite literally got on the bike yourself and went and did something about it. Do you think that that's why you've had such a rapid ascent to the position in UKIP that you have? Because people want to see people in charge who are actually going to be. I mean, how many demonstrations have you been on? You've been to Calais. You've been right to the borders. You've been doing all these things. Do you think that that is why you've been garnering so much support?
Yeah, well, in terms of the Ukraine trip, the BBC, I had a contact, and so we got the BBC to publish about me, and they did it in a good light. I think they might be regretting that now. But that certainly wasn't propelled me to where I am now, but it definitely helped, because if you put Nick Tenconi into Google, that BBC article pops up, and every time I think to myself,
Brilliant.
good, you did something right
Yeah.
for a change, BBC. So look, with Turning Point, first of all, we've got a fantastic chief executive officer, Jack Ross, who is an accomplished everything politician, activist. He's also an incredible strategist as well. He's also a social media guru, one of the best in the world. He produced the entity that was Turning Point. And yeah, I think that Turning Point needed Nick Tenconi. So there's quid pro quo there. But it was Turning Point and Jack that gave me my shot.
Yeah.
And from autumn 21, when I became COO, I was told almost within a matter of months, after a few public engagements and a few graphics promoting the arrival of me, I was told, look, right, get yourself on going back to those tours you mentioned, get yourself onto university campuses now. It's called tabling. You have a table, foldy table, do for job, and go and get spat at by Antifa and Socialist Worker Party and lefties and commies. Go give out patriotic conservative leaflets, preach the good word. Go do that. And I thought, so at the time I would have been 36. And again, I've run my own business and I've been in corporate sales my whole life. And now I'm going to be at street level getting spat at by 19-year-olds at 36. And I thought, who are you, Nick? Who are you? You're no one. Get out there. Out I went. Reading, Brighton, Sussex, whatever you call it, Nottingham, Warwick, Durham. I mean, I can't, all the St Mary's in London. It's all there. You can all see the Vox Box footage, and the uni days. So that was me earning my stripes. That was me taking the fight to your social justice warriors on campus, your liberals, your lefties, all those under the influence of the demonic, which is very sad that they've been indoctrinated, but it is a path they have chosen. They have been indoctrinated, but they refuse to wake up. And alongside that, the good, normal student, socially conservative, maybe a bit lefty, but non-violent and peaceful, who just are a bit confused, perhaps.
A bit misguided.
Etc. We've all been there. We've all been there. Okay, so that was the university stuff, and most people know about that. Then we go to, I want to say February 2023, where Jack and I decided that hosting a drag queen story hour show to minors was unacceptable. And that was happening in a pub called Honor Oak.
Wow, I actually was able to see the thought come to your brain.
Do you know what? I've put the trauma so far out of the back of my mind that
Tried to block it out.
I couldn't even remember the name of the pub that I spent 6 months at.
Oh God.
So Feb 2023, Jack and I and the usual brave thanes that stand with us. Massive shout out to Patriots of Britain, and there's loads of other people, by the way, Emma, as well, that stand with us. There was I'll cut to the chase. There was 12 of us. There were 600 lefties. There were so if you go to Brockley Rise, if you stand opposite the Honor Oak, where the Honor Oak's in front of you, turn to your left and walk up there to a corner. We all 12, 13, 11 of us, very small in number, we all arrived at different times. So eventually we all realised that we were basically being scurried to that corner because there were about 600 lefties and 100 police. And just imagine I know that you're involved in activism, just imagine any police scene where it is truly monstrous.
Yeah.
How could you bring out such a force to what we'd advertised? And we'd done some leafleting and all this good stuff. And I stood on that corner, you can still find the footage, megaphone speech. And it's not like that was a defining moment or indeed a turning point. It's not like that was the case, but it was of sorts something where I went, right, the right has gone unchallenged for so long. The left, has gone unchallenged for so long, and the right has been so asleep at the wheel for so long. We didn't really promote it. I mean, we did, but 600 lefties turned up. A couple ran the police lines, and we found out they had bladed articles on them, etc. Hundreds of police, ITV News, you name it, helicopters, the lot.
My goodness.
And it really consolidated that when I was told, right, you're going onto university campuses to do all this now, that's a lot for anyone. If you go to places like Sussex University, they'll call this group called Antifa, and they take about 5 hours to get out of bed. So when they send the flare up, you've got 3-4 hours, because you can see them on the phones. You know what they're doing. They'll come along, masked up, black bloc, try and intimidate you. They'll flip the table. They're not warriors. They're not fighters. So they won't fight with you, but they'll come and make you feel very unwelcome. You're thinking this is quite a lot. Again, 36 years old, was nothing compared to Honor Oak. And then I realised, right, I got it wrong. There was this is nothing. The universities is nothing compared to this. Right, so that means that in a few years' time, I'm going to go and do other things, which is nothing compared to Honor Oak.
It's just going to
keep growing and growing, and my metal needs to keep getting tested, and I need to keep proving myself to the British public, and I need to keep winning trust, keep earning that respect. And what a privilege. It's never going to end. It's never going to stop until there's no breath left in this body, and to beat me, they're going to have to kill me. So we just keep going and upping the ante, you know?
Yeah. And how would you, because I mean, talking to you and seeing you in other interviews and other videos, people can gather what the core values of UKIP are. But if you could just define them, just to clarify, because I mean, there is Lois Perry, the former leader, she hinted that she thought there were sinister undertones towards new leadership. Do you think that is because there's been such a radical turn to, let's go back to conservative, traditional values, and for some people that's scary? Do you think that might be why?
Well, I was in the meeting when she said that, and it was in direct response to me saying, look, we've got to invite Tommy Robinson into the party. That's a no-brainer, right? The guy deserves a knighthood for the work that he's done. And I don't think she liked that. But I'm not aware of, when she says sinister undertones, I'm not sure what she's pointing at. But again, it's knowing Lois as I do and her ideology. It's all part of that live and let live, love is love, libertarianism, absolute. And that's not a slur against her, by the way. It's a slur against the ideology. I find it weak, and I find it pathetic. We're at war, and also we're blue-blooded conservatives. That means right-wing Christian nationalism. So I don't know what she was referring to, but I think it was in context of the discussion around Tommy being invited into the party, which she was going to have nothing to do with. At all.
As always, it's always a controversial name that makes people start to go like that. Unfortunately, I mean, we've seen it with Reform. We've seen it with all the political parties. I mean, especially when it comes to Labour and Conservative, they will hardly even mention his name, let alone have the discussion, unless they're branding him as a far right or a racist or whatever. But as far to actually sit down at the table and be like, let's talk about this guy, in something other than just a purely negative light.
Oh, it's disgusting.
Everyone runs away.
It's your usual libertarian, liberal, narcissistic personality disorder, virtue signaling, we're better than you. And of course, people need that to elevate their status. They need the perceived bad guy or the perceived wrongdoer or whatever's beneath. They need that so they can indeed feel morally superior, which goes against the Christian world. I mean, it's unbiblical, but we're at war. And I'm sure we're going to come on to talk an awful lot about unity, because there's no way that conversation, much to my horror, is ever going anywhere. But I've got some hard truths about that. But again, let's take you up on your point there. The Conservatives, Labour, hang on a minute, surely unity could be achieved if they just did the right thing, but they refuse to, and then you get this fracturing,
this divide. So looking ahead, what would be your long-term vision for UKIP? Obviously, the ultimate goal would be to get into power, for you to be Prime Minister. How do you plan to cope with the constant changing political climate we have these days?
So the end goal for UKIP is to seize power and to begin mass deportations and remigration of those who do not belong in Britain. That's the end goal, to deliver justice to the girls, which is to begin mass deportations and remigration, and to then offer the girls reparations, which you can't unwrap someone, you can't undestroy their lives, but you can offer them an enormous amount of money, and you can ask society to put their arm around their shoulder whenever they see them, and they feel a sense of community and belonging, and maybe that lessens the pain. But we can't fix it. So victory is very clear. Mass deportations and remigration of those people that don't belong here, justice for the girls, referendum on the death penalty, and reparations for the girls. And to deliver justice, last but not least, to deliver justice to the British people, which links back to mass deportations and remigration, and of course to reinstate Christianity back into the heart of government. Now, mass deportations and remigration is self-explanatory.
Yeah.
The question becomes who and why, which of course is easy to explain. I'm sure we'll come on to that. And reinstating Christianity back into the heart of government. Again, what and how? Again, very, very easy policies to describe. But the vision is clear. We have the British people are being given, they're being given an option. One party, one leader, one vision, take your country back. This all ends when we say it ends.
Yeah.
They're being given that. So if we can get past all the psyops and all the faux patriotism and all the grifting and all the MI5 plants and all the government tactics to divide and conquer, if we can get past all that, the purple tidal wave is there for the people. And if I am given the command, I will serve the people and I will lead them to victory.
And that actually brings us perfectly on to my next question. Because you've talked about being a defender and promoter of, masculinity, Christian values, traditionalism in that sense. Do you think that mass immigration is the biggest threat to Christianity in this country at the moment?
So I think that there's since the time of our Lord, there's the one true faith has been persecuted more than any other faith and any other thing since the beginning of time. So the Christian worldview, we this is no surprise to us. This is no shock to us. Is it mass uncontrolled immigration? Mass uncontrolled legal immigration and illegal immigration is the incorporation of the Islamic Caliphate at the hands of our liberal, corrupt government. That's how long that story takes to tell. Well, Islam and Christianity are incompatible theologically and culturally in every way, shape and form. Saudi Arabia, Christianity is completely persecuted. I'm not sure that there are any functioning churches in that area as well. So Saudi knows it. The Islamists and the extremists over here know it. And assimilation, I've been told in no uncertain terms, and I've sat down with imams and community leaders, is absolutely off the table. The best we can hope for is integration, but that's problematic if assimilation's off the table.
Yeah.
That's problematic. So mass uncontrolled legal immigration and illegal immigration is a massive threat to our most vulnerable within society, women and children, our culture, and of course our faith, Christianity, because what we're incorporating is the Islamic Caliphate.
Yeah.
It's Islamic State. But the biggest threat to Christianity, of course, in terms of a biblical approach, of course, is godlessness, is liberalism, hedonism, giving in to the devil when the devil whispers in the ear and we fall for it. That obviously I'm forced to answer that biblically, that's the reason why we've fallen so far from grace. Problem with that is culture runs downstream from politics.
Yes.
So if you put something Christian nationalist into the Houses of Parliament, all of a sudden you're going to see society become re-engineered and turn around, which is my vision as leader of UKIP. So the greatest threat to Christianity, of course, is ourselves and the poor decisions that we choose to make, also known as godlessness and liberalism.
Yeah.
But at state level, there's an enormous amount of two-tier policing, two-tier justice, corruption, and let's not forget the perpetual, never-ending defunding of Christianity. Defunding of the parishes, the Charity Commission is completely captured, communist in orientation, the defunding of churches, the defunding of parishes, the two-tier media, the BBC refuses to report on the persecution of Christianity in Azerbaijan, Armenian Christians, which is the second most studied Holocaust after the Jewish Holocaust, genocide as well. In Nigeria, Boko Haram, they've killed 330,000 children, BBC remains silent. So it's very important for your audience to understand, what do we mean when we say persecution? What do we mean when we say silence? What do we mean when we say two-tier? It's all about, is something being persecuted? Is it being defunded? Is it being mocked? Is it being undermined? Is it being ridiculed? Is it being demoralized? Is it being defunded, dehumanized? These sorts of words. And every time you just look at Christianity and indeed again, British patriotism, and all the boxes get ticked.
Yeah.
It's the long march through the institutions, it's the communist playbook, the facilitation of our liberal elite government, everything we stand for, going back to defender of masculinity and Christian conservative values, everything we stand for, masculine men, our political ideology as Christians is conservatism, and the one true faith, Christianity, our faith. All of it is under attack. All of it.
Yeah.
So mass uncontrolled legal and illegal immigration plays a huge part. Godlessness, liberalism, degeneracy, debauchery plays a huge part. The state, the corrupt, greedy, narcissistic, incompetent officials in state are ensuring our demise as a Christian nation. We are running out of time. It is time to pick a side. And I am offering the public a shot at Christian nationalism, which hasn't been done before. We haven't even had conservatism. And I'm sure we're going to go on to talk about that.
We will, but just that made me think of a point. Do you think that all of these things, because I mean, like you just said, we're being attacked from basically every angle, especially when you look at our most vulnerable, like the children, they're being attacked. You know, we've got the grooming gang scandal, you know, the streets aren't safe, we've got the trans ideology, the children are being completely indoctrinated or physically endangered one way or the other. Do you think that this, as well as the purposeful desecration of godliness, is part of a wider agenda to do exactly that, desecrate the soul, desecrate us from God so that we will not be saved?
Yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned that word there. So nothing can, if we choose a virtuous and good life, and you are baptized, again, depending on which denomination you're following, if you are baptized and confirmed and you are not in a state of mortal sin, if you die in a state of grace, you're going to heaven. But again, depending on what denomination. So I'm glad you mentioned that word. Some people believe you're saved just by prayer. Just if you just accept and affirm that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is indeed our Lord and Savior, that's it. You're saved. It doesn't matter what you do and don't do. You're saved. So I'll let you and your audience decide on whether that's utter nonsense or not. And again, it's a journey with faith. So the question is there an agenda at play? Let's talk about the war on beauty. Let's talk about the death of detail campaign. Let's talk about art, media, culture. Let's talk about degeneracy and debauchery within those areas. Let's talk about knife-wielding maniacs. Let's talk about women who refuse to dress modestly, for example. Let's talk about a total lack of self-respect and beta cupped males. A new birthing of that, which I don't think we've seen before. Certainly not in my era. I mean, my 20s wasn't that long ago. I've not seen this before.
Yeah.
Men dressing effeminately, women wanting men to dress and behave effeminately, the masculinization of women to boot, whilst no woman wants that. But the power is so alluring to her and so seductive. She thinks she wants it, but actually she doesn't. She then grows to hate him, be they girlfriend, boyfriend, friend, spouse. Resentment kicks in because it's not actually what she wants, needs, and craves. He also doesn't want to be behaving like that either. You have the perfect formation for what's called the battle of the sexes.
Yeah.
Utterly demonic, a massive threat to child rearing, massive threat to godly marriages or marriages focused, centered in Christ. The agenda we are witnessing is to emasculate, I guess, in some, emasculate us, demotivate us, demoralize us. Again, you said radical trans lobby, two-tier police, two-tier justice. No one voted for mass uncontrolled legal or illegal immigration. The persecution of Christianity, the fact that both the Muslims and the Islamists can get away with absolute murder, and they'll always get off on some technicality, that there's preferential treatment in society towards certain tribes who scream the loudest, aka the Unholy Alliance, which is Islamists and communists, for heaven's sakes, far left extremism and Islamism. There is an agenda at play to defund and to erode and to destroy Christianity, masculinity, patriotism, and our sovereign borders.
Yeah.
The question then becomes why? Now that's the question that everyone wants an answer to. Where I come in is that it is deliberate, and it is designed to make us so anxious and so depressed and so distracted and so outraged that we can't fight back.
Yeah.
Because if you've ever been anxious, depressed, it's called brain fog. You can't settle on any one thing. Now imagine when you've had laser beam, eye of the tiger focus, cash on the hip, you've got a bit of a stride about you, things are going well in life. Compare the two. The state wants us utterly, utterly demonized, demoralized, and not thinking clearly, not united, because they know that united we stand, divided we fall. Now this has been written for centuries, divide and conquer tactics. It's very difficult when you say divide and conquer. So that's when I get up and I go buy my coffee from Pret and a little sandwich and then I go to my job. You can't necessarily, but if you open your eyes, I've already mentioned the Death of Detail campaign, the war on beauty, communistic art, degenerate, debauchery, Notting Hill Carnival, two-tier policing. I gave a whole list of things. When you are exposed to that 24/7, 365, you're being programmed.
Yeah.
You're being programmed to accept the new norm, whatever it is. Again, there's a long list there. Is there an agenda? Yeah. Do I think that's it? Yeah. Do I think that we need to save the country and fight back? Yeah.
Defiance Records, bringing you the best music from the movement. Ramisa's Never Give Up and Mad Mix's You're So Right are now available as a double A side on Defiance. And Raw Milk Conspiracy are bringing the purpose back to music with their latest single, This Is England 2024, and their brilliant debut, Misinformation Whore. Plus, now out is the fantastic Ballad of a Toolmaker's Son from Trevor John, all available from Defiance Records, the Freedom label.
He did what he was told to do back then, and that's how he got the number 10.
But now it depends how far down the rabbit hole you've gone. Do you believe that the people right at the very top, pulling all the strings on everything, are Satan worshippers?
The conclusion all things said on my little list there, and what we're being exposed to on the right, on the Christian right, on the patriotic right, you feel it, I feel it. Yeah, it's exhausting. I have to stand by what I've said. The agenda from day one, from the time of our Lord and Savior, look at what they did to him. Look at that. Look at the passion and the death. I have to respond in a biblical frame. I think that nothing's changed in 2,000 years.
Yeah.
I think that the devil is real. I think demons are real. For everything holy, there is unholy. Satan, false prophet, Antichrist. Straight question, straight answer. Is the agenda demonic or satanic? Yeah, in orientation, because it's ungodly.
Yeah.
So it's not a conspiracy or a whatever they call them nowadays, and you can't say certain words because that'll make you sound crazy. If I'm asked the question, do I think the agenda is demonic in orientation? You can also call it evil. Yeah, godlessness, liberalism. See, liberalism is communism veiled as freedom.
Yeah.
That's liberalism.
That's the trick.
That's the trick. The devil is constantly pulling the whispers in the ears. It's no problem. It's freedom. Abort your baby. It's freedom. Behave atrociously. It's freedom. It's freedom of choice, etc., etc. Knowing, but I will add to that, I'm the first person to hold my hands up and look at myself in the mirror and attempt to atone, as we all are all unworthy sinners. Yeah. But is the agenda evil in orientation? Why? At what point did the British public wake up to that list that I gave there? Oh yeah, no. Hopefully that resonates with the audience. Oh yeah, he's right. I did see that, and that does make sense. And I do feel terrible about everything. And it is an agenda, and it is a psyop. But at what point do we take it to the next place, which is where you're going to, which is correct to do so? But the response has to be the biblical worldview. It's Satan.
Yeah.
It's the devil.
Yeah.
And I'm saying let's reclaim Britain. I'm saying let's take our country back. But I can't save everyone. And the fight against evil, see, the devil doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
Doesn't eat, doesn't sleep. And the problem is Christian worldview. Again, this all ends when we say it ends. If we all get down on our hands and knees and beg for mercy and turn our lives around, we go away from sin and the falling from grace, and we go to grace. But you can't you can't ask people to do that. You can't. I mean, there are qualified people that do that, preachers, etc., priests. But
they have a hard time of it.
they have a seriously hard time of it. There's not enough of them. They have a really hard time of it, actually. Yeah. So no, I'm glad you brought it up, but I don't want to seem deflated in my response. It's just that I can't solve that part.
So, keeping on the topic of Christian faith, one of the things that you very publicly advocate for is bringing back the death penalty. Now, depending on what denomination you are, people have different views within the Christian faith, but most Christians, some, I don't know if it's fair to say most, will say that God should be the only one to take a life. So how would you justify supporting the death penalty, and does it conflate or conflict with your own faith?
Sure. So the question is asked often. Does it conflict with my faith, the Christian worldview, the Catholic faith? No, I don't believe it does. I also think that if Protestants want to go off the Bible alone and Catholics want to go off of the early church, that which was instituted by Christ, the Bible, as you know, came along a lot later. I don't really mind which way we do it. It's right there in Genesis, it's right there in Exodus, and it's right there in Leviticus. In fact, it's in there an awful lot. Now, there's some understanding or divide, I'm not sure what, about the New Testament versus the Old Testament. Right. My understanding is that we have the Bible. It's a Christian Bible. So I'm not sure why we would place any one interpretation. If you read the Bible, best of luck. It's very difficult to understand everything. That's why you have this thing called an authority. It's why you have the church. The Bible came after the creation of the church. It's on the rock of Peter that Christ instituted the universal apostolic Catholic Church. That's what Catholic means, regardless of which journey you go on, by the way. Those are facts, not my subjective opinion. Does it conflict with my faith? No. Does it conflict with the church? Maybe. We'll find out. I'll see what sort of reception I get over the next few years. It's right there in the Bible. Again, Leviticus, Exodus, Genesis. It's right there. You can call it an eye for an eye if you want.
Yeah.
Romans. It's there. We entrust the state to govern over the not verbatim. We entrust the state to govern over us. So, is it controversial? Yes. Do I care? No. Do I think we should stand by it? I know we're standing by it. Pedophiles, predators, rapists, Islamists, communists who want to subvert our culture. You can't reason with these people. They're psychopaths. Look at the Southport case. Yeah. My understanding is the last reading I've done on an article somewhere is that when Axel comes out of his cell, there has to be 5 guards in riot gear to facilitate him. What?
Why?
Cut his head off. Now the last question, because to be fair, you have actually asked it spot on. The last question, because there are many, is the Christian worldview on murder. Commandment number 4, thou shalt not kill. Christians are not permitted to use violence, murder or otherwise, but we are allowed to defend ourselves, and we believe in just war theory. So the 500 years that we kicked Islam's arse over 8 conquests, that was to crusades rather, that was to repel the Islamic conquest and its predicate of Arab supremacy and Arab imperialism, Arab colonialism, which no lefty textbook will talk about or lefty will talk about or acknowledge. It's called the Islamic Caliphate. So plenty of examples in the Bible, which everyone can argue over if they want. It's clearly there. You can't reason with psychopaths. Why should we not set a deterrent, bearing in mind where we're going as a society? Are women and children no longer safe on the streets? You've got cases like Southport, which I can't even talk about that without losing my mind. And you've also got the 4th commandment, thou shalt not kill, contradiction. Well, no, not really, because in Romans we're taught that the state has every right. Once you entrust the state has every right to, if it's God's will, to oversee and govern over its people. Well, I'm suggesting we do that biblically this time over Christian nationalism. So I think it'll be okay.
Yeah. And again, just going back a couple of minutes ago, you said I think this, people think this, do I care? No. And I like that. And again, going back to the other point of, I think that's why you're garnering a lot of support, because you're saying what needs to be said. And regardless of if people agree or not, that's not going to change whether you say it or not, or how loudly you say it either. And I think that's another thing that people really admire. Obviously, people who are typically on the left will see that as going one step too far. They'll see it as, I don't know, perhaps an aggression, or they'll see you as maybe an angry person or something like that. Just reading here, critics like, the Trans Safety Network have accused you, with these drag story times, they've accused you of directly inciting violence when you're going out on these marches. How would you respond to that? And what would you regard as inciting violence directly?
Sure. So the discussion around inciting violence in a two-tier media, police and justice environment that we're living in is very important to discuss, but I'll deal with the easier topic first. Trans Safety Network. There's lots of lefty journos and publications, and they're all communist, far left-wing fascists, and they write, I'm not or they do, I don't know what. I'm not concerned with psychopaths. So to be fair to you, you've asked a straight question, which is how do you respond to Trans Safety Network telling me that sticking up for the most vulnerable within society is inciting violence, when the Honour Oak pub was complicit in harbouring Antifa overnight, who Antifa bring out wooden flagpoles, and the reason why they bring out wooden flagpoles is because they convert into sticks and batons. And we've got all the footage of me taking on the one morning outside Drag Queen Story Hour. We've got the footage of them swinging the sticks at my head, and at one point I'm hit over the head at 5:30 in the morning. We were going to get there for about 4 a.m. to secure the ground, and there were 30 Antifa at 4:30 on a Saturday morning outside Honour Oak pub on Brockley Rise. There were about 30 of them, all with the flag. They've got the Antifa flag on it, don't get me wrong, because they have to pass off as a flag, right? But it's the baton, it's the stick. So Trans Safety Network have the gall to suggest that I'm inciting violence when 6 months of protesting and being on side with the police and law abiding and always respecting boundaries and markers, standing up for the most vulnerable within society, sending a message to the patriots to stand up and take their country back. That's somehow inciting violence. These people are psychopaths.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like I need, it's a great question, but I don't feel like I need to respond because they're insane. Now, the subject about inciting violence is very, very important. So I went to Dalton-in-Furness recently, where a mega mosque is being built, a super mega mosque or something like that.
About this.
So I thought, as ever, you mentioned earlier on about, do I think I'm garnering support because I'm saying it as it is and I'm leading the charge? Look, it's an honour to serve the British public. If they choose me as their leader and command me, I will do the unthinkable. So it's my privilege if the public wants me. So Dalton-in-Furness, I drove there on my own. I had a contact because I need someone to hold the camera. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to see what happens on the approach in to where the mosque is. If you've ever spent time up north, it's like a scene out of Emmerdale. It's so pretty and picturesque, and the medieval wall and the rolling hills. And then on the left, there's this huge construction site. And then you pass it and it goes back to being countryside. And then 300 yards, half a click on the right is a Catholic nursery school. So I did a U-turn, drove back, parked at the garden centre. This is in the middle of nowhere. Like it's literally English, beautiful English countryside. Cumbria identifies as, I'm going to have to remember the stats now because this was over a month ago, 42% Christian. It's 0.4% Muslim. We're in the middle of absolute nowhere. So my guy films and I go up to the vans, and lo and behold, there's loads of what seems to be Islamic guys there. Right, okay, cool. 8 or 9. They all scattered into the cars and drove off. Straight away, they're off. Then the foreman or the manager on the site, he's having none of me. He wanders into his little office with his little hard hat and his little face.
With a little power trip.
And his little clipboard. So he walks off. And then all that's left are the workers. And I'm like, right, guys, come and speak to me. It's all there for you to see. Come and speak to me. I want to know what's going on. No, what do you want? And it's all a bit like that and just a bit silly. So, all right, fine. Well, you're going to get both barrels then. Now I've got the BBC writing to me saying, why did you incite? Because they do the little pieces. Why are you incite? I've got the left inciting. Again, inciting. But the footage is there.
Yeah.
You can all watch it. It's standing up for what you believe in. It's standing up against the Islamic Caliphate. It's standing up against domestic terrorism. It's standing for Christianity, truth, justice, patriotism, keeping our kids, our women and children safe. But they'll say it's inciting violence. You can't reason, Emma, with these people, be they radical trans lobby, radical feminists, Islamists, communists, liberals suffering from liberal narcissistic personality disorder. You can't reason with them. So we're no longer asking, we're telling. I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to be respected. We're going to do what the British public wants to see and say what they want to hear. And again, I'll remind your audience, stuff like Dalton in Furness and allegations that it's inciting violence. This all ends when we say it ends.
Yep.
When we stop being afraid. It's always peaceful. It's always law-abiding. I never advocate for interfering with or breaking the law in any way, shape or form. It all ends when we say it ends. But that's rejecting outrage, which I'm sure we're going to go on to talk about. Reject the outrage, reject the anger and the hatred, again, unbiblical, and spin it into good. Join UKIP. Stand to be a candidate for UKIP. Get trained by me in professional world-class, what we call smart activism. You're never going to break the law. You're always going to do it right. It wins hearts and minds, it inspires at street level, and it really upsets our enemies because they're now thinking, be they Islamist, communist, liberal, they're now thinking they've cracked the code.
Yeah.
They know how to do it law-abiding and peaceful, and it's effective. Well, by definition, it's effective.
Well, this is what we thought. Reform was going to give us. I remember being there on October 26th at the Tommy rally, listening to the speakers, and I remember when I think it was Liam Tufts that came out and said, "And how do we feel about reform?" And everyone cheered for about a split second, and then everyone remembered what Tice had just said on the news, and the cheers turned into boos very, very quickly. And I think that Reform absolutely shot themselves in the foot when they alienated the Tommy Robinson lot, right? And now Reform it's not even Reform anymore. It's basically Conservative 2.0. All the people that had anything about them have gone or been kicked out, exiled from the party, or have left because it's not going where they want it to go. Now Reform are coming out and saying, oh, it's okay, because now what we're going to do is one in, one out.
Ooh.
Nowhere is that what we've been asking for. Nowhere at any point is that what you've been promising us. And now we're just supposed to go, oh, okay. What do you think about this?
Well, that's how the Nigel cult works. He can get out of bed in the morning, say anything he wants, and then the cult will just roll their eyes and flutter their eyelids and just swoon over Nigel. That's how cults work, right? It doesn't matter what he does or doesn't do. Why? Because he's after the liberal centre ground vote, and he knows that he has to toe the line. That's why he said what he said in the interview with Winston when he said mass deportations. How clever was that? It's not that we won't do them, it's that they can't be done. I'm exhausted with it. It's nonsense.
Yeah.
It's nonsense. Listen, they're after the British public deserves some transparency over the political mechanisms by which and how you operate a government, form a majority.
Yes.
You've got these things called members, and you can't upset them, which is why at UKIP, the purple tidal wave is transparent, vulnerable, honest, 6 missions, Christian nationalism, right-wing Christian conservatism, nationalism, whatever you want to call it. So you know what you're getting into bed with. Yeah. You know what you're getting involved with. There's a reason why Nigel flip-flops. There's a reason why you've got the hiring that he makes, the firing decisions that he makes. I'll remind you and your audience that both Ben Habib and Rupert Lowe did not resign. They did not leave of their own accord. They were fired. They were pushed out. That's my understanding. Yeah. They didn't leave of their own accord. Right. So with regards to one in, one out, why would you or me, why would the patriotic right give it any time or whatsoever? It's absolute nonsense. I understood Reform's immigration policy a year ago. It's just liberal. It's very liberal. I've heard all sorts of different. They'll use phrases like net migration, which then fuels the Matt Goodwin model, and fuels a lot of other people who are basically totally reform, very loud mouths on X, by the way, who've got quite large followings and who think they're quite sexy, but they're now drifting over to Rupert because but they were the ones tooting reform's horn.
Yeah.
So I must call when you ask specifically about Nigel and Reform's immigration stance, I must also call out the BS elsewhere as well. It's not fair to not do it. Close the borders, end immigration, begin mass deportations and remigration of the 5 to 10 suspected million people who do not deserve to be here.
Yeah.
And then in 5 years' time, we'll have a moratorium of 5 years. In 5 years' time, we'll look and decide. And under my leadership, my government, we would then open the borders potentially to Christian women and children fleeing Islamist persecution, Azerbaijan, Pakistan, Syria, Israel, Egypt, etc.
Yeah.
But we're ending immigration. And then just like when we take power, we will look at the books. It's very difficult to say about money and numbers and things like that until you're actually there and see the books, as you well know. Same with potentially ever opening the borders again. Why would we recruit? People always use the word immigration. This is what the people need from their leader. Nigel might talk about immigration, the I word, all the time. It's recruitment, is it not? Immigration is synonymous with the word recruitment.
Yeah.
Why did we recruit from countries? Why did we recruit people that hate us? It's madness. We're closing the borders. We're beginning mass deportations and remigration of those who do not deserve to be here, don't belong in Britain. Not only are we not going to be bringing any more people in, we're sending them home. That's what the people want to hear. That's what they're going to hear. And that's what we're going to do when we're in power.
Yeah.
So I'm not impressed with reform. I wasn't impressed a year ago. I'll tack this on because it's fair for the people to listen to. I stood in Trafalgar Square on July 1st last year. So there were many UTK performances last year. My October one was the last one, I think, but there was one at Parliament Square before that, and then there was Trafalgar Square 1st of July. I stood there, UKIP, on my own, 50,000 patriots, all of them, including the influencers and the big names, and they all scream reform, and and that shout out that lasted only a minute at the rally that you've mentioned, that went on for about 30-40 seconds, and I was just there like that. Yep, reform, they're doing it. They're doing it, and look how it's changed in a year.
Yeah, look how quickly things can go oh so wrong.
It's oh so wrong, and it wasn't a year, it was 3 months. The Ben Habib situation with Zia, and then we had the Rupert Lowe situation. So I'm asking the patriots, please, stick the brakes on. Movements, think tanks, lobby group, pressure group, please just stop. And again, park the hatred and the rage and the outrage, and just think.
Yep.
And remind yourself of where everyone was a year ago with reform and their nonsense. It's going to keep happening. People are going to keep producing movements, and they're going to keep producing new political parties. Just stop. Judge the leader and the policies. And does that leader have the balls to do the unthinkable?
Yeah.
So it's three. Does the leader have the balls to do it? Are the policies right, there or thereabouts? So missions and manifesto, etc. Does the vision, does that align to your core values, the patriotic right? And then make a decision from there.
Yeah. Would you see a possibility of, let's say, just hypothetical situation, Rupert Lowe rang you up tomorrow and said he wanted to join UKIP. How would you feel about that?
So I'm really impressed with what Rupert's done. I think he's done fantastic work as an MP, and you'll all be aware of the fact now that Rupert's the lace in the hole. He does the freedom of information requests, and it takes 6 weeks to get that back. So he produced a pipeline with his SPADs and his team to go run all that, and then he's got this fairly consistent. It is, however, part of the outrage model, because it's the numbers model, and we get we get incited by that as well. 50,000 this, 100,000 that. I like Rupert. I think he's done great work as an MP, but he's an independent MP who was chucked out of reform. He rings me up tomorrow. I offered him, as went viral, but fairly viral, when he left reform. Sorry, when he was kicked out of reform. Yeah. He didn't get back to me. That's absolutely fine. No offense taken. He calls me up tomorrow and says, I want to join UKIP. Right, well, let's sit down and let's discuss this, because I'm about to start interviewing and training and developing 650 warrior knights. So I need to know whether we're on the same page here, Rupert. I need to see the whites of the eyes, and I need to shake your hand.
Yeah.
I need to understand what we're dealing with here. And then my hope is that he'd be as genuine in person and in terms of dialoguing as he is online with clever tweets. And then we've got ourselves a deal, and he's crossing the floor, key term. And now we've got our first MP on the purple tidal wave as UKIP in the House of Commons. And again, he's joining a party, not an independent, which is hugely impactful. So let's hold a good thought for Rupert. And anyone else, this isn't the last of the shenanigans, Emma. It's gonna keep on happening. So yeah, like Rupert, let's talk.
One of the things that I've been thinking a lot about lately is the recent changes to abortion law and the decision to decriminalise women who abort beyond 24 weeks. My personal opinion, I think it's completely abhorrent. I'm guessing, knowing your views, I'm sure that you do as well. But I was wondering, because you're talking about Christian nationalism and what the country would look like under your leadership, would you like to see a complete ban on abortion?
No. So we're going to stay secular. Britain's a secular state.
I was going to ask, because obviously pre-1967, we saw kind of back alley abortions become rife because there was no safe route. So what would abortion law look like? Would the 24-week limit be lower under your leadership?
Absolutely. So you've hit the nail on the head. So I'm working very hard in the Christian communities and with the pro-life lobby group, which is a huge voter demographic, to make them understand that you can chuck hundreds of millions at campaigning for something that's never going to happen. You're never going to achieve it, or you can listen to me and do it the right way. Is it awful? Yeah. Is it satanic? Yeah. Does it break my heart? Yeah. But we need to start producing wins on the political right. And I'll ask you, as I do all my interviewers, and I'll ask the general public, your audience, talk me through the wins on the right, or the Christian nationalist right, just the right will do, just the socially conservative right in the last 100 years. You'll probably scramble and say Brexit. Well, Brexit, we both know, isn't a win at all. It's not been done. The answer is there are no wins. The progressive left have had their way. So I'm doing everything behind the scenes to try and wake parishes, clergy, parishioners, pro-life lobby groups, the tens of millions that get pumped into the anti-abortion industry. I'm trying to explain to them how wins are achieved. Now, policy-wise, this is important for viewers because the transparency, I mean, it's all in our manifesto. The current legal limit, as I understand it, was 24 weeks. We're going to roll that back to 20 weeks. So that's very important for people to understand. So 20 weeks would be the final stage that you could opt to kill your baby. If you have club foot and cleft palate and Down syndrome, at the moment, you can abort up until birth. That is utterly, utterly disgusting, and it is utterly unacceptable. So in terms of policy, we would roll back the current law with regards to Down syndrome, clubfoot and cleft palate back to 20 weeks. And the legal limit for healthy babies or non-deformed or whatever you want to call it, back to 20 weeks. So we'll set the precedent, which will dovetail with our other policies regards incentivizing man and woman to get married and to have children and to stay local to their communities, because it's all very well and good if we talk about re-engineering society where both man and woman are getting up at 5 a.m, commuting 2.5 hours, finishing work at 7 p.m, commuting 2.5 hours, coming home at 10 o'clock at night. I promise you the marriage will not last, because for 80% of the time you're with other men in the office and he's with other women in the office. It doesn't work.
Neither of you is getting a home cooked meal when you come home. Neither of you is probably getting a good night's sleep.
No one's getting a home cooked meal. You've got your tale of woe. I've got my tale of woe. We're both exhausted. We're both burnt out. Obviously, you hate your job because you're working in a cage for someone who hates you.
And then you start to hate each other.
And then you turn on each other, as is the human condition, of course. So we talk about re-engineering society. When the subject of abortion comes up, this is the really good stuff. Why are women forced to go back to work? Why do you have clawback contracts? Why on earth are men and women taking jobs so far away from the marital home? Why are we not incentivizing marriage and child rearing? Why are we not closing the borders so that we stop becoming outbred and ask our native population, like every other country does, to actually have children? So the subject around abortion becomes even more complicated when we all see that graphic which always goes viral. There's an abortion clinic and there's a long line of white liberal women at the abortion clinic, and then there's a maternity clinic line and they're all black and brown, and it's so sad. It's so awful. So what happened to us? Well, we were sold a lie. We'll probably have to talk about boomer conservatism and libertarianism and all that sort of stuff. But the conversation about abortion is really important. We are going to set the precedent by undoing the nonsense going on in Parliament right now, by the way, because that will need to be addressed in 4 years' time. So we'll roll it all back, but we're going to start re-engineering society and give the people, culture runs downstream from politics, give the people what they need in terms of the tools to realise and to wake up to the realities. We got it wrong. This is the way we're going to do it. And then involved in that is getting people back into church, back into the parishes. The atheists will lap it up. People say the atheists X, Y, Z. They'll be on side with it because they're not silly. They see Britain remains secular, not advocating for a theocratic state or anything like that at all. Never said it, never will say it. So the agnostics and the atheists will probably be quite happy with when they look around and see what we're what we're up against, what we're facing. They'll probably be okay with it.
Yeah. One thing that we've talked about trans ideology, we've talked about faith, we've talked about the Islamification of Britain, we've talked about so many things. But one thing that is clear throughout all of these topics is that our government is completely corrupt. Do you think it's corrupt because it's ran by the deep state? How do we get around that? And do you think that we will ever see a return of trust between the people and the power?
The trust will be reinstated under a UKIP government and my leadership. I see no other option for the British public. We're out of time. We have no time left. There's no more grains of sand in the hourglass. I'm asking the British public to back me, to trust me. And when people say, why should we trust you? The rent is due every day on trust, loyalty and respect. That's in your personal life and your commercial life as well. Every day the rent's due. Not every week, every day. So I think the people will be more than comfortable in backing me based on that duty and demonstration, shall we say. So yes, the trust between the politic, the populace, the state can be reinstated. I believe so. I have hope that that's the case. I think it can. Are we in the position we're in because of the deep state controlling our central government? Now, I'll humour the question to give your audience something and maybe a few smiles. This group of people say everything's Mossad. This group of people say everything's Saudi. This group of people say everything's MI6. This group of people say CIA. What do I know? What I know is that there are very, very powerful, very, very well-financed, lethal men who have malintent on our way of life in Britain. So how senior was Tony Blair? Is all the things we now hold, is a good example, all the things we now hold him to account over. Was that Tony or was that someone else pulling the strings? You're always going to have low level, you're always going to have mafia, you're always going to have politics, and everyone knows that politics is the strings being pulled. It's above mafia. Then there's this another supranational level, what we call New World Order, globalism, deep state. I've heard all of it. We worry about what we can control and not what we can't control. So is there a globalist overlord, satanic or otherwise, pulling the strings of the G7 nuclearized country? You know what? I'm sure there is. But I can't access those echelons. Yeah. I can't get there. And people will talk endlessly about Epstein and Disney and all these other things and handshakes and symbols and all the rest of it. And I can't help but feel that, shouldn't we be taking our country back?
Yeah.
I can't help but feel when I got thrust into this November 19 Wuhan, I knew something, smelt it a mile off. People turning up muzzled, 2 meter signs, you've got to make a reservation to go for a pint in a pub. Something's not right. I think we're engulfed in distractions. We've been through it. We're engulfed in wickedness, true. But in terms of the globalist New World Order, fourth stage industrial revolution, they've written the books. Yeah. We know about the climate agenda, net zero. There's always money, corruption, power, and an awful lot of the time, sadistic intentions behind all this stuff. And that's where I'd like to conclude on the point, because the audience deserves to know. If you control a first past the post G7 nuclearized country, you're about as powerful as can be. In one breath, we say oh, the trust is gone, we're never going to get our country back. In the next breath, we complain about how powerful Starmer is and now he's locking up political prisoners. Which one is it?
Yeah.
Which one is it, guys? So if you're Prime Minister of the G7, oh, you're no one, your strings are getting pulled. But Keir's still doing what he's doing. So the question then becomes, if I get into power, what happens then with the deep state?
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you, you'll be put down on your knees, a gun will go to the back of the head, and they'll say, right, you're going to be a good little boy now and do what we want to do, and then they'll threaten you with something. Well, luckily for Britain, I'm not overly concerned about whether I live or die saving the country. I'm here to do a job. So again, it pains me to say it, but the trust is due, the rent is due every day on trust, loyalty and respect. Because I get this question when I do my X Spaces. Sounds great, Nick, but once you get in the deep state, ... Okay, how do I respond to that?
Yeah.
I can't be bought. My soul is not for sale. And again, the public, I'm asking the public to trust me, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I'm asking them to back me, trust me, and put their faith in me that we will take the country back. And when the deep state or whoever does come for us, we'll declare war on them.
Yeah.
What army do they have anyway? Whoever they are, EU, supranational tyranny, IMF, WTO, NATO. What army do they have? We're going to build our own army. I on record as saying, we don't have time to cover it today, I don't think, but we're going to reindustrialise Britain. We're going to remilitarise Britain. That's the heart of the community. That's what Thatcher tore out. Our famous Conservative leader, by the way, who was right-wing, tore out communities. That's what happens when you deindustrialise. So I say to your audience and to you, Emma, deep state comes for us. With what army? What are they going to do? Go for it.
Amazing. And just straight to the camera, where people can find you, how they can help you out in upcoming campaigns and things like that you've got going on.
Certainly. Thank you very much. So please follow me on X, guys. It's at Nick Marcel Tenconi, which is my middle name, or it might just be at Nick Tenconi. Obviously, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. So it's Nick Tenconi, or my middle name Marcel might be in there. Follow that, because then you're going to get updated on everything that we're doing campaign-wise. We are doing a monthly mass deportations demo up and down the country where we say to the local community, these are our streets, and we're saying no to communism, Islamism, globalism, and liberalism. We are Christian nationalists taking our country back. But we're also launching our Northern France operation, which is to send teams of British men to patrol the borders and the beaches in northern France, to intercept the migrants and the boats, to destroy the boats, and by definition force the French and the British government's hand to release the military, to deploy the military, and to once and for all stop the boats. We can't do it unless good men stand up, and we can't do it unless it's the will of the British people. So you have a donate link. You'll see it right there on my X and UKIP's X, formerly known as Twitter. Please give generously, even if thousands of people put in just £1, you know the deal. But also the link to sign up, to put your name forward, to come out with us to Calais and to patrol the borders of northern France, because we genuinely mean it and believe it when we say it, that this all ends when we say it ends. Thank you and God bless.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on, Nick. Thank you.